Right now, I want to welcome to the program Miss Emily Miller of the Washington Times. Emily, how you doing this evening?
I'm always good to talk to you, Cam.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. First of all, I want to talk about your piece, jumping off the fiscal cliff. Boehner tells Obama to cross the debt ceiling and tax hikes off his to-do list. But first, we've been covering the story that you first broke, the story of Lieutenant Augustin Kim, a veteran who had his firearms confiscated as he was going from his parents' house in New Jersey to his duty station in South Carolina, stopped off at Walter Reed for a doctor's appointment, got lost in Washington, D.C., was pulled over, firearms confiscated. He was put in handcuffs. Now, ultimately, the charges were dropped, but he still doesn't have his gun back.
Well, you forgot that he spent a night in D.C. jail.
A night in jail, excuse me. Yes, as well.
Right.
And so I know that my colleague Jenny Simone talked to Lieutenant Kim, talked to Richard Gardner earlier this week. What's the latest?
Well, this city, Washington, D.C., they are making such a big mistake here. They've now spent 2 years refusing to give this man his property back. There are no charges against him. Everything has been dismissed. And as you've seen, the outpour around the country about this case has been enormous, and yet they are still refusing to return his guns. Well, I talked to, because obviously Lieutenant Kim is stationed in and lives in Charleston in South Carolina, so I spoke to the South Carolina delegation. Tim Scott is his congressman, and you'll see a story that just got posted on the Washington Times site tonight. Tim Scott is completely involved in this. He has his whole staff working on it, both in South Carolina and in D.C., trying to get his guns back. Now, Senator Lindsey Graham has taken a personal interest in this case. He, as you know, I think you know, is a gun owner, is a hunter. And so Lindsey Graham yesterday, this is in my story, sent a letter to Police Chief Lanier. And in it he said, among other things about the Second Amendment, he said, I strongly urge you to return Lieutenant Kim's property immediately.
Oh, really?
At the bottom of the letter, in his own handwriting, all in capital letters, he wrote, please respond to us immediately. Well, then I heard, and I'm pretty sure the call went in this direction. Chief Lanier called Senator Graham today about Lieutenant Kim. I don't know the details. They won't tell me details exactly what was said, but apparently it was a productive conversation. So Senator Graham is feeling more that Chief Lanier is listening. However, nothing has happened, and in the week since the story came out, I put it up on Monday. One letter came to Richard Gardner, Lieutenant Kim's lawyer, and it was backdated, and nothing's happened. They're not moving, and so now Congress is barreling down on them, and also Senator DeMint, the other senator from South Carolina, is handling this case as well. So, D.C. can refuse to give this man's guns back, but you're going to have the weight of Congress coming down on you for it.
Well, and it's sad that it should have to be that way. But again, when an injustice like this occurs, Emily, you live in Washington, D.C. You know the number of violent crimes that are committed in our nation's capital every day. The idea that any amount of time and resources was spent on Lieutenant Kim, putting him in jail, putting him in handcuffs, confiscating his firearms. This is ridiculous. This doesn't make the city any safer.
It doesn't. And, this goes back to several big issues in this case, and, it's really brought a lot to light. One of them, which you and I have talked about many times, is the transport laws in this country. The federal laws are very clear. As long as you are somewhere where you can legally possess and carry and going somewhere you can legally possess and carry, and you're doing it for a lawful purpose, you're okay. You can do that. And but a lot of these states, and I won't call D.C. a state, but Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, D.C., places like that who don't like guns have these really strict transport laws that are not about, will not win in court, but all they do is harass gun owners. And that's what happened in this case. Augustin Kim was legally transporting his guns. They were locked and cased in his trunk. They're separate from the ammunition. That's why when the police asked him, can we search your car, you shouldn't in any case, any defense attorney, and Richard Gardner was his attorney said, the stupidest thing he did was say he could search his car. But, a lot of people do that, and you shouldn't. I know that now.
Right.
But that being said, this man is so honest. He served he just served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He's so honest. He said to me when I talked to him, he's like, I knew my guns were cased. I knew they were locked. I knew they were safe. There was nothing. I wasn't hiding anything.
Right.
So that's why he said, he wasn't hiding anything. But the police said, because he'd been so honest, they said by his stopping at Walter Reed for a doctor's appointment, he then made himself a resident of the city and had to abide by the carry laws. And that's when they charged him with 4 felonies.
No,
it's just not accurate. And, in the end, he had to, just for the high risk of going to trial on felonies,
right.
He ended up having this plea deal where he pled to 1 misdemeanor of having an unregistered gun, which is ridiculous because he can't. But, and then they were all dismissed. But all the charges have been dismissed, and the city refuses to even have a hearing on this. It's just unbelievable.
It really is. And Emily, I know we've talked a lot about the motives of the city before. And once again, here's just another clear indication that the motives behind these gun laws, they're really not about public safety. They're not about making Anacostia a safer neighborhood. They're not about, reducing the incidence of gang violence. They are laws that are designed to get legal gun owners out of the District of Columbia, including people who may be passing by. Or how
about somebody, as Augustine Kim said to me, when he got back to Walter Reed, his platoon leader picked him up from jail the next morning where he spent the night. So offensive, this person who is serving our country, 28 years old. I'm so offended and upset just even, this happened. Anyhow, he got back to Walter Reed and he talked to the JAG there, and he knew he couldn't represent him because it's a civil case, but it's not military. But he said to me, he's like, these are felonies. I had no idea this would get to this level, and I'm so worried about my career. And the JAG said to him, I think of all things for you not to be worried about is how a charge for carrying a gun when that is your job will affect your career. So that's, the really most ridiculous part about this is the police of D.C. put in jail a man who just spent years in Afghanistan holding much bigger, scarier guns than the ones in his car, and is fully allowed to shoot people with them. But here he was with, a collection of 1911s and an AR-15. But, he's injured. It's just so offensive, and you're right. It has nothing to do with gun crime control. It is not going to do anything about violent crime to pull over, a veteran and someone who's an active duty soldier. It had nothing to do with it. And, I'll say, Augustine was mostly mad at the fact that the police were playing with his guns and showing them off to each other and, talking about them while he's sitting handcuffed on a curb.
Wow.
It's just, the whole thing is offensive. And I'll just say, as, every day I'm on the email list of the police and every crime that happens and everyone who's shot and everything that happens and stabbings and muggings in the city every day. And just to think that Chief Lanier had to spend time, who knows how much time she spent, in talking to Senator Lindsey Graham today about Lieutenant Kim's guns. Or her staff had to respond to calls from me or other outlets, and Fox News did this story as well now. Instead of just putting the guns in FedEx and sending them back to him, this resistance to just returning his property is just unbelievable. And the waste of time, the waste of manpower between the property clerk and the evidence clerk and the cops and the U.S. attorney, and all that could be used so effectively for the people, the bad guys.
Well, absolutely. So, Emily, do you think that the story is ultimately going to have a satisfactory conclusion?
I'll say I will not rest unless Lieutenant Kim's guns are returned to him before he leaves for Kosovo. This man is a hero. He is serving our country, and it is an abomination that we have taken anything, the government has taken anything of his and has not returned it with an apology note. And I will work on this every day. I've got the 2 senators from South Carolina actively working on it. His congressman's actively working on it. I will get every member of Congress on this if I have to. It's everyone in the media should be talking about it. It should not go on another day, and it's going to, because D.C. is so adamant. And I hope that in the end he will get his. I know that he will get his guns back because he has to. It's his property. But I hope that this hurts D.C. in a way that they understand that they cannot continue with these kinds of laws. There are no carry laws in D.C., and they treat people like criminals. And you will see what's going to happen tomorrow in the House.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. In the House tomorrow, there's going to be Phil Gingrey has an amendment that would make the sense of Congress that D.C. should allow carry rights for active military who are stationed or live in D.C. Now, it's just a sense of Congress, and it's not enforceable.
Right.
But I think that's it's not, and it wouldn't have applied to Lieutenant Kim because unless he was he might have been stationed at Wall Street. I'm not sure how that works technically. But the point is that, all this outrage at how D.C. is treating gun owners and not allowing carry rights, I think will backfire on them. And Congress is going to continue to pass bills, and the courts are going to continue to rule against them.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking with Emily Miller from the Washington Times. And, you've got your piece, Emily, talking about John Boehner and Barack Obama's conversation earlier this week about, legislative agendas between now and the end of the year. I understand as well that Speaker Boehner told Barack Obama, look, we need to get Attorney General Eric Holder to comply with this congressional subpoena. What are some of the other things that the Speaker told the President when they met earlier this week?
Well, it was what I thought was amusing about this whole meeting. It was yesterday at the White House, and what I think is so amusing is, Obama has spent this whole year taking Air Force One and, all his Secret Service and the traveling White House and the press corps all over the country to call on Congress to do things. When he wants that Congress to, don't raise student loans. Student loan rates can't change. He had to do that in, I think, Colorado. When he wants more spending, he has to go to Florida. When he wants, the war on women to stop, he goes to New York. But he always calls on Congress. He spends so much taxpayer money to call on Congress. And I just keep saying, why doesn't he just drive down to Congress? It's a mile and a half down the road. Save us all like $500,000 a day on this travel, or call them to you. So finally he did. Finally, actually, when he called on Congress, he actually did it face-to-face this time. And he had them to the White House, bipartisan, bicameral, Republican, Democrat, on Wednesday, and he gave them his to-do list, which he's been, running around talking about with, he calls them business tax cuts, which, the House has already passed business tax cuts. He's not going to do that. And it's all these petty things like the student loans, which is absolutely going to sail through one of these days, just taking a while. It's all these small things. John Boehner looks at him and is like, okay, this is enough of small balls, is what he said. What we need is what's happening is a fiscal cliff, and this is what's seriously going to happen. The serious stuff that's pending at the end of this year after the election, which, of course, Obama has no interest in anything after November 6th. I don't think Boehner said that to him, but right. I will add that part. We've got $4.5 trillion in tax increases coming on January 1st. We've got the sequester that's going to hit. It's $1 billion being cut just on January 1st. We've got the appropriations bills running out. We have not figured out how to pay for these things. All these. And then he said to him, we've got the debt ceiling we're going to hit again. It looks like by the end of the year. And Secretary Geithner has said, I might do some accounting tricks and drag us into January, but we're going to hit the debt ceiling again, and we haven't even paid off the last part we borrowed. So you're going to have to figure out a way to pay off that. So he just went at the president with all the serious stuff, and everyone's calling the fiscal cliff. That's the end of the year.
Right.
And sort of pushed back and said, this are the things we need to focus on. These are real issues that grown up in the room has to discuss. And, again, this president, he's so focused on his reelection. He doesn't care about having real conversations with Congress, and he doesn't look to focus on these serious issues that are happening at the end of this year that make businesses not hire, that make people not invest, that put people who don't have jobs worried they're never going to get jobs, and instead of focusing on those things, he focuses on these election year gimmicks. And, it's good to see the Republicans and, Speaker Boehner being the Republican with the influence mostly on the Hill right now saying, we're doing the real work. We're going to try to figure out how to handle these things. And we're going to pass a bill, he said to the president, before the election to keep all taxes at the same level going forward and to force major tax reform next year. Hopefully that will send a signal to business. This is what you can expect. Meanwhile, the president's going to fight for higher taxes, of course.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that not only is the president seems not interested in working with Congress, I mean, he's actually running against Congress. He had the whole "we can't wait" a theme that got trotted out, and then it got mocked by conservatives, so they kind of quietly dropped it. But he's been bypassing Congress for the last 2 years, and now he's going to try to blame Speaker Boehner and Republicans for their obstinance in refusing to deal with him.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, that's the thing is he doesn't. even if even on his to-do list, they're not things he actually wants them to do. They're things he wants to pretend that he wants them to do so he can act like he's got something to campaign on, because he doesn't have he can't campaign on his record because it's dismal. And nobody wants 4 more years of this. So he's got to come up with something. But, nobody really, his to-do list is pretty lame, and it's nothing anybody's really going to do. And like you said, he is the one who's directing this Democratic Senate not to pass a budget. And look what happened yesterday. They had President Obama's budget came up in the Senate 99-0. I should say it the other way around, 0 to 99.
Right.
He did not pick up. And the only person who didn't vote against it was Senator Kirk, because he's recovering from a stroke in a hospital bed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year it was 97-0. At least he had 3 people sitting out against him. I mean, it's so bad that the president can't even get one person on his party in the House or Senate to vote for his own budget. So, he's not serious about getting anything done. He's only serious about getting reelected. And I think he thinks his best chance of getting reelected is to pick these fake fights. And hopefully the Republicans won't fall for it.
Well, we'll see. In the meantime, Emily, thank you so much for coming on the program. And if there's any updates regarding Lieutenant Kim, please come back and let us know, will you?
I will call you first, of course.
All right. Thanks so much, Emily. Have a good evening.
Thanks. You too.